Hey guys, it's Canadian. I'm back doing another first impressions video of Commando healing. So just initially here, I read about the changes to Commandos prior to logging on here, and from what I saw, I was hugely skeptical that the class is going in the right direction. It seemed to me like a lot of the defensives got split up, so you have a choice between whether you want to be mobile or a little tanky, but you can't move when you're healing. So didn't seem like it was a good combo for PvP, but I didn't realize how bad the nerf bat really was until I logged into into the test server here, and I saw that my character's name had turned into Glenn. Too soon? Okay. Anyways, so I'll just start off with the Combat Medic here. So this is the new UI, and this is how you access the ability tree here. It's the Combat Style tab. So the passives on the right are pretty much everything you know that makes Combat Medic healing what it is. Some of these passives are missing from 6.0 and have actually just been rolled into the abilities in the middle here. Like as an example, the passives that improved Trauma Probe, but they just put all those changes into Trauma Probe itself, which makes sense. So just to talk about your choices in this tier here, there's a couple new things that are showing up for the expansion, so it's kind of interesting to talk about. So the level 27 tier here, these are all choices you have that can modify Advanced Medical Probe, so it has a different function. So your first one to talk about here is Critical Probe. So just a straight critical chance buff to your Advanced Medical Probe. So 5%, that's pretty good. So that's pretty solid. So that's not a bad option there, and that's just always present. That's really easy to maintain, obviously. Next, integrated probes. Activating Advanced Medical Probe grants integrated probes for the next 15 seconds, increasing all healing you do by 3%. This one is like, it's 3%, and it's pretty easy to keep that buff up, but 3% is a little on the low side. 5% crit to Advanced Medical Probe, to me, sounds just slightly better. But maybe there's some, the theory crafters can crunch the numbers on this one, whether it's the 3% is actually really good. So just at face value, I can't really tell. But my gut instinct between these two so far is to say the 5% crit chance is probably a lot better. Now, the last one is probably the most interesting one to talk about, but whether it's effective or not, I can't say for sure right now. But anyway, residual globules. I'll just read the tooltip real quick here. So healing a friendly target with Advanced Medical Probe leaves behind a residual globule for 10 seconds. A different friendly target can move into the residual globule and be healed for X amount of healing. So these things are just to demonstrate what it looks like here. Yeah, so these little circle things. So if I, since I just healed myself with this, I can't run through it and heal again. Someone else in my team has to see what I did and then run through it. Now those little circle things on the ground, they only last about 10 seconds, so it's not too long. Now, there hasn't really been anything like this in the game before, where if someone wants to take advantage of that healing, they have to actually engage with it. So I remember from my experience with World of Warcraft is that priests used to have that holy light well thing that other players could run up to and click on it and give them a heal. That was incredibly difficult for priests to use effectively because it depended on other people clicking on it. So the only time I ever see it really get used effectively is that priest was really on everybody's case, insisting that they use it. Most of the time, if you just randomly in a pug threw that thing out there, the chances of everybody would be using that are pretty low. So I'm imagining the same behavior is going to apply to this game here, is that if these things are dropping all over the place, I think it's going to be very difficult to get players to actually run into it to get a heal, because like the actual healing it provides is actually pretty good, but again, it's really dependent on people running into it. So it's on paper, I think this would probably give you like the most healing, because once you pop your supercharged cell and you can just keep spamming Advanced Medical Probe, you can be dropping these things all over the place, or you know, like you could really do a lot of burst healing very quickly. Like it's more burst healing than I think some of the other options here would provide, but yeah, it's just the delivery makes it really difficult. So this is something that I'll definitely try and play around with, but I don't think it's going to be very good, at least in PvP. unless of course you're running like with a very coordinated group, and you can let them know that these things are dropping so they can run into it. But beyond like coordinated groups here, I think this thing is not going to be good for war zones. So that's this tier here. The next one, level 35 tier here. So charge barriers, just something that was accessible to you in 6.0. So it's just pretty much, since you're casting medical probe all the time, you're going to be running with a 6% damage reduction. So in PvP, any kind of damage reduction is really good. And it seems in the expansion here, commandos are going to be face tank healing a lot. So having that damage reduction is going to be probably more important. So that's a pretty solid choice here. The sticky grenade has been changed, so it's no longer baseline for the class, and the damage on this one's okay as an AoE, but the new feature here is that it gives a 60% snare for 10 seconds. So that's a fairly strong snare in PvP. It's going to feel like to the other people that get hit by this is they really can't move. So I think this is going to force a lot of players to start blowing cooldowns to get out of it that maybe they really didn't need to, so you can maybe take advantage of this one here. And this seems to be pretty spammable with the 15-second cooldown. So and the snare lasting 10 seconds, that's pretty good. Now, of course, your Culto Bomb does have that little 30% snare that it puts on people. Or sorry, about 50% snare for 3 seconds. So that is still something you have access to. And the cooldown on that's pretty short as well. So if you need to maintain an AoE snare, a Culto Bomb's there for you, but the sticky grenade is just a little stronger. So you don't necessarily need to pick the sticky grenade though, because you actually do have some compelling choices in this tier. Like charge barrier is pretty good. Sticky grenade you can make an argument for. The other thing that really surprised me here was stealth scan. You know, like I kind of glossed over the fact that it's like, oh, it's just stealth scan. That's not going to be good at all. But when I read the tooltip, I was shocked. It's been completely changed. So the first thing that you can notice here is that the cooldown is, well, it's by default 15 seconds, but my alacrity is bringing it down here. But basically, the duration that this thing lasts on the ground is also 15 seconds. So if you're using this on cooldown, that means you have permanent stealth scan on the ground all the time. So that's different. Before, when you pop this thing on cooldown, there would be a window where you couldn't use it and it wasn't on the ground anymore. So that's a new function. So that's actually going to make stealth a little more difficult for some classes. And if you position this stealth scan correctly, it would force the stealth classes to run through it. Otherwise, that just makes the entire area impassable for them. So that's kind of cool. Now, there's also... it grants you a charge of suppression protocols, and that increases the damage or healing of your next ability by 20%. So all you have to do to gain that buff is you just literally put this thing on the ground, and you can see suppression protocols. So it's kind of nice, just free 20%. And of course the stealth scan is free. It doesn't cost you anything here. So in those moments where maybe you're just perhaps running a little low on ammo, and you want a global cooldown where you're not spending more energy, you could maybe just stealth scan, just chuck that out there just so you can give yourself a buff, so your next ability does 20% more healing. So it's kind of nice. I'm not complaining. It's actually a compelling choice for that reason, just to give yourself that buff. Yeah, so it's actually not a terrible choice here if you want to do a bit of burst healing. And Gunnery and Assault Specialist have access to the same stealth scan as well, so they could potentially line up a burst window where they give maybe just one of their abilities 20% more damage. Some pretty cool combos you can put together here. But yeah, so this tier you've actually got some choices here, so it's going to boil down to flavor. I don't think you can go wrong with any of them, depending on what your needs are. So yeah, it's like I think they did a good job of giving you different choices here. So the 43 tier here, this is all going to be things that are associated with Trauma Probe. So first one we'll look at here is Neighborly Probes. When Trauma Probe heals its target, it also heals up to 2 additional friendly targets within 5 meters for X amount here. So the radius on this isn't as big as I would like to see, but you know, it's still kind of a cool option that if you have this Trauma Probe on a bunch of people and they all start taking AoE damage, then these probes would probably do a lot of AoE healing. I think that would actually be kind of cool. Now, just like the actual single target healing it provides, it's actually probably the lowest option out of these the 3 choices you have in this tier. Again, I'm gonna have to wait for the theory crafters to actually crunch the numbers and tell me which one's probably better here. But just at face value, it seems like if you're anticipating a lot of AoE damage, so maybe you're just pugging war zones, then this could get a lot of good mileage here for you. Now, next one in the middle here, efficient probes. When trauma probe heals its target, there is a 25% chance it does not lose the charge. Now, this pick here, I think, is probably the worst of the three. Trauma probe generally is not difficult to keep on people because the buff itself lasts 3 minutes, and it's rate limited by 2.5 seconds, and there's 7 charges on it, so it kind of takes a while for it to actually fall off. So there's usually a lot of time for you to reapply trauma probe, but as you have global cooldowns and ammo to justify the cost there. So if he extends the duration a little bit longer because it's not burning through as much charges, there's not too many situations where you're really going to need that, just because it like I said, it's so easy to maintain. So I could be mistaken on this one, and maybe the number crunchers are going to tell me, it's like, oh no, this is just twice as effective. Then okay, maybe it's a different story. But just on face value here, it just doesn't seem that good comparing it to the other choices here. Last one here, trauma shield. So this one, when it heals somebody, it also gives them a little shield as well that absorbs damage. So it's actually kind of nice, and the actual amount of damage that gets absorbed is more than the healing from neighborly probes would provide. So it's kind of nice. So I think trauma shield here is probably the best pick, because neighborly probes requires people to be really close to each other. So like 5 meters, that's melee range is 4 meters. So 5 meters is like basically everybody has to be touching each other for this to see benefit. So I don't know if this is really going to be worth it, to be honest, but trauma shield is absolutely going to be worth it, because that absorb shield is going to proc no matter what people's positions are, and absorbs more damage than neighborly heals or neighborly probes can heal for. So yeah, I think trauma shield is going to be the default for just about everybody, to be honest, at least in its current incarnation. So the next tier, they break things up a bit here, so it's more of a kind of like utility option based on your needs. So your first one we'll talk about here is diversion. So like all the benefits that you used to be able to get with diversion before all get rolled into one here. So you get threat reduction, you get defense chance boost, interrupt immunity, 2 charges of decoy. So it's lots of cool things here. So yeah, I think for PvP, diversion's probably going to be the most compelling choice here. With a lot of the changes, commandos are losing a lot of casting immunity here, so diversion is just one way you can get that back. Now we have supercharged celerity here as well, so this is the buff we all used to have, we don't anymore. So this is, I think, maybe a PvE talent. In PvP, I didn't find this all that useful. I used to find supercharged cell was a lot more useful in PvP, just because you needed the healing. But if people need that kind of big group buff, then this is your pick here in this tier. I think it's probably the worst out of the 3 here for PvP, as far as my options would go. Next, overclock, so reduces the cooldowns of concussive round and tech over by 15 seconds each, and it also gives tech override 2 charges. So that's the ability that gives you makes things instant cast. So there's a couple cool things you can do with that, like obviously burst healing on the move kind of thing if you really need it here. But for PvP, I think I'd put my money on diversion being the best talent in this tree here. Okay, so the level 61 here, this is, I think, a pretty easy choice here. Reflexive Shield is just so useful because, the benefits you get later with other talents. Just if your Reactive Shield has a lower cooldown, then you get more benefits out of the other utilities in the tree here. So that's usually the no-brainer for PvP. But your other options here, cell capacitor, so gives you a little extra ammo when you use it, and the 10% alacrity you get for 6 seconds. That 10% alacrity is actually really strong. So in those windows where you need to do a lot of burst healing very quickly, this will help you get there. But I don't think you can definitely play without this utility. You don't really need it. So what else we got here? Tenacious Defense just reduces the cooldowns of things you're going to be using all the time. So this is also a really compelling choice. So I don't know if it makes sense to take over reflexive shield, but you know it's reducing the cooldowns and things you're definitely gonna be using all the time. So if you don't really need the tankiness of the heal spec, then you could probably just go Tenacious Defense here. Okay, so the level 68 tier here, these the next 3 tiers here, man. That's just like this is what hurts so much. Just the way they're splitting things up. So the 68 tier, we have Force March, so your full auto and successive treatment here for at least for Combat Medic. This is what would give you mobility here, is being able to use that. So if you want that, then the things you have to give up to use it are Combat Shield. So this one fucking sucks because this Combat Shield is what made face tank healing possible for Commandos. So without this, they're going to be really squishy now. Or a lot squishier, I should say. But yeah, the casting immunity this thing would give you, the 20% extra healing, those were super good. You could just keep spam healing, and if they're like a couple DPS were pounding on you, you didn't give a shit. It was just so good. But yeah, that's one of the options here. So if you pick Combat Shield, then you're going to be very immobile without Force March. So this is like a really awkward choice to make because, yeah, I don't know how I'm going to play with either one here. So I can move around the map good, but I'll die fast, or I'll be pretty immortal, but I can't move anywhere. You know, my 2 choices here. Adrenal Surge as well is also something to pick here. So this was a really good talent, you know, that healing 6% of your max health was super strong. But you could have, in 6.0, you could have played without this, to be honest, because the other talents were just so good. So having Adrenal Surge in this tier here, I think it's, out of your 3 choices here, I think it's probably the worst. If you're just kind of like new to the class and you need something that's just going to save your bacon because maybe you just didn't control things correctly, then this might be a compelling choice here, just to kind of save your ass. But once you get competency with the class and you're pretty good at PvP, then you can play without this one, to be honest. So the next tier here, this one also cuts super deep. So you got Echoing Deterrence here, so you reflect. So this was always really good because it forced people to either heal you to full or they just left you alone. So that's really good. Now, people can still damage you, of course, with like AoE and stuff, but you know that shit isn't going to kill you. You can easily heal through that, no problem. So the single target damage is what's really lethal. So while this buff is up, you're pretty much safe. So that's in this tier. We also have Hold the Line, and they've given it the increased duration here. They just rolled it into the ability. But it still kind of sucks that, you know, you hold the line that's not baseline anymore, so you're going to be able to push around Commando healers a lot more than you could before. And your single target stun has also been removed from your repertoire, so this was really good for either helping your team set up kills or providing you a little breathing room to, if you know, if a melee's on your ass, for example, you can stun them and just put some distance between you and the melee there. But now that this is gone, you're going to find, with the lack of mobility you have now, not being able to CC people as much now, that Commandos are going to be taking a lot more damage. This is going to be treading back to the days of 2.0 and 3.0 where really a Commando healer just had to stand still and keep casting over and over and over again, and if you interrupted the Commando or stunned them or something like that, then their healing would just fall off a cliff. They were so easy to shut down. I mean, the healing numbers was good, but the effectiveness was not. So that's why in the older days of the game, Scoundrel healers were really good because, you know, they could keep casting their HOTS and instant cast over and over. Like, you couldn't interrupt it, so they were just constantly running around, kiting people and doing like their best healing. So that's what made them so good. And then later on, Sages got really good with mobility and really strong healing while they were mobile. They got a little better than the other classes, so that's why they started reigning supreme for such a long time. And then 6.0 Commandos, I think, for my money, were probably the best healer because they had a combo of really good mobility and they were super fucking tanky. So that made it almost impossible to kill them. So you basically had to kill everybody around them just to actually bring down the Commando. So, but yeah, so that's what we're looking at for the 73 tier here. Is it's really hard deciding which one's the best here. So I think Hold the Line. If you could probably drop that one first. I think the Stun or Reflect are probably the 2 better ones in this tier here. But I don't know. It's so hard. I think initially I'd probably go with Reflect here. I think my strategy for my initial testing is going to be in PvP is just to go all in, push all my chips in on super tanky but immobile build, just to see how it goes. So I think Echoing Deterrence will be part of that repertoire, but I may end up going. I'll definitely try the other two here, but I think Echoing Deterrence will probably be the best pick. And our last tier here, so we have Concussive Force, so grants you that 4-second root, which is really nice, and that's on an ability that is basically spammable. So it's a 8-second cooldown on the internal cooldown on the root there, but it's a root that lasts 4 seconds. So really, you can maintain roots on people with like a pretty high uptime, basically. So and of course, when you use a concussion charge, things get knocked away so a little further. So that means your ability to kite is stronger. So that's a really compelling choice for PvP, and I loved using this talent back in 6.0 or in previous iterations of the game as well. But now it's a choice you have to make. It's not the baseline anymore, unfortunately. So the other thing we have here is Combat Stims. Now this is also a super compelling choice because as a healer in particular, you're going to be hit with all kinds of nasty shit all the time, so roots and stuns and all that. So this thing was basically keeping you at full ammo the whole time, no matter how hard you were healing. So it was really nice. But without it, it's going to be a lot more difficult to keep your energy in check, especially in those moments where everybody in your team seems to be dying simultaneously, and you have to burn through your ammo quickly. And if you try to maintain your energy, then you'll have people die. So it's like not really an option. You have to burn your energy, and this thing kept you well stocked. But not being able to pick this now, I mean, the other things you have to give up to use Combat Stims now, like it's such a painful choice. And last is Trauma Stabilizers. So that was the thing where when Reactive Shield fell off, it was like regenerating like 50 to 60% of your health sometimes. Like it was nuts. It was super good. So yeah, we can't have the Super Trinity combo of Trauma Stabilizers and Combat Shield and Reflective Shield all working together unless we're prepared to sacrifice a lot just to do it. So yeah, that's the life of Commandos right now. Is you're going to be nowhere near as effective as you were in 6.0 in PvP here. I'm a little concerned that the class is going to be so easy to shut down. It's just going to be a non-starter. It's not going to be worth using, but we'll see how the meta plays out. I know a lot of classes are in a similar boat where they're given impossible choices of what they could actually do. So yeah, so this is my initial first impression of Commando Healing here is I don't feel too good about it. I'm not sure how things are going to play out, but my feeling is they're just going to be too easy to shut down, and they're just not going to be mobile enough for what's going to happen in PvP. So just comparing how Combat Medic Healer is going to look when you compare them to Scoundrels and Sage Healers. I did check out those other classes on the player test server, and without a doubt, Commando got nerfed the hardest out of all the three here. The other two healers look pretty okay. Like, they don't have impossible choices that they have to make between their talents, so I think they're going to function just roughly about the same as they did in 6.0, but for Commando healers and the expansion here, they're in a really bad spot. I think easily they're going to be the worst healer. But I could be mistaken. We'll see how the meta shapes up here, but just based on what I've seen logging into my other characters here, I would I would enjoy playing probably a Sage Healer or a Scoundrel a lot more than a Combat Medic, because, yeah, from what I've seen so far, boys, it does not look good. But hopefully I'm mistaken, and this is still early. We still have a couple more months to go before things go live, but as it stands, yeah, Combat Medic is not good, I'd say. So yeah, let's hopefully this one changes, because this is my favorite healer class by far, but I won't be playing a healer that's completely ineffective, not like how it used to be back in the day. It was just a meme spec. So anyway, let's hope things change here, boys. So I'll be covering in later videos Gunnery and Assault Specialist as well, so I'm just putting out the Combat Medic one here first, because that's the one I'm most likely to play here. So, but yeah, we'll cover more classes as well down the road here. I'm just playing around for now and putting out videos as I kind of figure shit out. Well, catch you next time, guys.